It's April 2nd, 2016. Lionel Messi sits in the locker room, disappointed. He's just lost El Clasico, the biggest match in world football. But there was no room for reflection. In just a few days, Barcelona faces Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. So Messi's already switched focus. But what he didn't know is that his worst moment of the weekend wasn't on the pitch. Because the very next evening, at around 8 p.m., the biggest financial leak in history would go live, exposing world leaders, celebrities, billionaires, and buried in the files was the name Lionel Messi. Somewhere, probably in his villa outside of Barcelona, he was informed. A call from his lawyer. Leaks revealed that Lionel Messi and his father each owned 50% of a secret offshore company. The firm, named Megastar Enterprises, was located in Panama, and its existence had remained completely unknown to Spanish authorities until the information was exposed. But before we find out what happens next to Messi, there's one question we need to ask. Who was behind the leak? Somewhere on this planet, a person sits behind a screen. On a line, he goes by the name John Doe, the common name used for people whose true identity is unknown. And that's exactly how he wanted it. From his room, he broke into the servers of Mossack Fonseca, a law firm in Panama City. But he didn't just hack in. He took 11.5 million secret files. In total, 2.6 terabytes of data, much bigger than some of the most well-known leaks. He couldn't do it alone. So after some careful digging, he made his move, reaching out, silently, to a journalist he believed he could trust. It's early 2015 in Munich, Germany. We're in front of the headquarters of the Süddeutsche Zeitung, one of Europe's most respected newspapers. Inside, at his desk on one of the upper floors, sits Bastian Obermeier, an investigative journalist known for digging where no one else dares to look. He'll win a Pulitzer in 2 years, the biggest award someone can get as a journalist, but he doesn't know that yet. He's working on a new story, when suddenly, a message appears on his screen.
My life is in danger, simply because I understood enough about their contents to realize the scale of the injustices they described.
At first, it might have felt like a prank, but as the messages continued, something became clear. Bastian realized this wasn't just a tip. It was the beginning of the largest leak in financial history. John said he was ready to share it, but only under one condition. He wanted to remain invisible. After the journalist agreed, millions of documents started arriving. Obermeier knew he couldn't do it alone, so he shared the documents with a global network of journalists, 107 media outlets across 80 countries. For over a year, they worked in secret. Then, on April 3rd, 2016, the first wave of articles went live, including the one about Messi. Not long after, Obermeier and his colleague Frederick Obermeier told the full story in their book. It was published in more than 15 languages and it was called Panama Papers. The name came from the country where the leak originated, because at the center of it all was one law firm, a name almost no one had heard of before, Mossack Fonseca, until the leak turned them into a symbol of global corruption. But who were they, and how did they get away with it for so long? They weren't a household name, but in the world of the rich and powerful, Mossack Fonseca was the place to go if you wanted to hide your money. From the outside, it looked like just another office building. White walls, glass doors, and polite receptionists. If you walked past, you'd never guess what was happening inside. But behind those walls, Mossack Fonseca was running a global offshore empire. Many clients were business people simply looking to cut taxes, but others were hiding far darker activities from embezzlement to arms deals. And it worked for decades, partly because the offshore world wasn't widely understood, and partly because those with the power to change the system often benefited from it. For years, this machine ran quietly in the shadows. Mossack Fonseca helped create over 300,000 offshore companies, most of them shells, used to hide money, avoid taxes, or cover up ownership. They made it shockingly easy. To set up a shell company, you didn't need to visit an office. You didn't need to show your face. Sometimes you didn't even need to show ID. And when you did, fake names and documents often slipped through without question. All it took was an email. Their team would send you pre-filled forms. You'd pick a name, a fake director if you wanted, and choose a tax haven. In less than 48 hours, you had a company on paper that no government could easily trace back to you. Most of these shell companies were set up in places like the British Virgin Islands, Panama, the Seychelles, or the Bahamas, because those countries have laws that protect anonymous ownership. The companies had no employees, no offices, no real operations, just names on paper. And they weren't picky about their clients. Dictators, drug lords, CEOs, politicians, celebrities, athletes. Anyone with cash to move and a reason to stay in the shadows. Mossack Fonseca offered them secrecy. And it worked for decades. The firm was founded in 1977 by two men. Ramon Fonseca, a Panamanian lawyer and novelist, and Jürgen Mossack, born in Germany just a few years after World War II. But Mossack's story doesn't begin in Panama. It begins with his father, Erhard Mossack, a former SS officer in Nazi Germany who fled Europe after World War II and settled quietly in Panama with his family. There, he reportedly offered his services to the CIA during the Cold War, and his son, Jürgen, would grow up to offer a very different kind of service, helping the global elite hide their money from the world. But when the files came out, the names inside shocked the world. Before we break down the full list, let's start with one of the most famous names on it, Lionel Messi. It's early 2012. Lionel Messi is at the top of his career. Big brand deals are coming in with Adidas and Pepsi, but behind the scenes, his father comes up with an idea to earn even more money. And the key to it all? His son's signature. Not long after, it was official. Megastar Enterprises was made. The only problem now is that Spanish tax authorities had already been investigating him for millions hidden in other offshore companies between 2007 and 2009. And when the Panama Papers went public, it gave investigators exactly what they needed. Messi and his father were accused of hiding 4.1 million euros in taxes. The money came from image rights, deals with big brands like Adidas and Pepsi. But instead of going through Spain, the money was routed through shell companies in tax havens like Belize and Uruguay. Almost overnight, quiet investigations became front-page headlines. Messi's image shifted from global icon to the center of a legal storm. For a player seen as the embodiment of humility and the grace on the pitch, the accusations hit hard. In a country that lives and breathes football, the idea of its greatest hero as a tax cheat shocked many. Crowds still cheered him on the field, but off it, the mood was different. Papers splashed his face alongside words like fraud and tax evasion. TV commentators dissected every detail of the court case, while talk shows debated whether Messi had knowingly cheated or was simply following his father's lead. For Messi, this wasn't just about paying fines. Sponsors stayed, but the pressure was obvious, and the Spanish court wasn't going to let him walk away quietly. In 2016, after a long investigation, the court gave its verdict. Messi and his father were both found guilty. Messi was sentenced to 21 months in prison and ordered to pay a 1.7 million euro fine. His father, Jorge, received a 15-month sentence and a fine of 1.4 million euro. But under Spanish law, prison sentences under 2 years can be suspended, meaning you don't have to serve time if you don't have a criminal record. So neither Messi nor his father served a single day in prison. Their fines were even reduced to 252,000 euro and 180,000 euro. But who else was hit by the leak? When journalists began digging into the leak, they uncovered names that shook the world. One of them was Vladimir Putin. His name wasn't directly in the files, but the trail led to someone very close to him, Sergei Roldugin, a longtime friend and godfather to Putin's daughter. On paper, he ran companies that secretly moved over $2 billion. Where the money came from and who really controlled it raised serious questions. Then came Iceland's prime minister. While helping rebuild the country after a financial crisis, he secretly owned an offshore company and never told the public. When the leak hit the news, thousands took to the streets. Within 48 hours, he stepped down. The documents also pointed to King Salman of Saudi Arabia. He was linked to offshore firms used to purchase luxury homes in London. Even close relatives of President Xi Jinping were tied to hidden companies. Inside China, the government moved fast. Censorship kicked in. News of the leak was blocked immediately, and the list kept growing. Each name told the same story. The rich and powerful had found a system to move their money quietly while the rest of the world paid the price. But it wasn't just politicians. Celebrities were exposed too. Emma Watson, known worldwide for being in Harry Potter, was revealed to have used an offshore company to buy real estate. Her team said it was for privacy and security reasons and no illegal activity was involved. Jackie Chan had at least 6 companies linked to Mossack Fonseca. It surprised millions of fans. The files suggested that he used them to buy real estate and manage money. There was no evidence of any illegal activity. But it raised one big question. Why would a global superstar need secret companies in tax havens? Jackie Chan never publicly explained the offshore firms. And legally, owning one isn't a crime. But to many people, the leak showed something else, that even the most trusted public figures were part of a system, built on hiding money. And then there were names most people had never heard of, dangerous criminals, including drug lords and arms dealers. But it didn't stop there. Over 500 major banks, including these, were involved. Together, they created more than 15,000 secret companies through Mossack Fonseca. For many, it felt like betrayal. The money meant to build roads, hospitals, or schools was quietly leaving the country. Governments around the world were forced to respond. More than 150 investigations were launched. Billions of dollars in unpaid taxes were tracked down, dozens of banks were fined, and some laws started to change. But many in the world's most powerful players walked away untouched. And all of this, every exposed name, every secret company, traces back to just one person. The anonymous figure who started it all. John Doe. A name no one can trace. After leaking the Panama Papers to journalist Bastian Obermeier, he vanished. No one knew where he was from, only a few messages, and then a long silence. Years passed. By 2020, the Panama Papers felt like a distant memory to most. A few documentaries have been made. A Netflix film came out. But for the average person, it's no longer front-page news. And just as the world began to forget John, he suddenly returned. In 2022, 6 years after the Panama Papers shook the globe, John Doe finally broke his silence. Not on camera, not through social media, but in an interview with the German newspaper that started it all, Süddeutsche Zeitung. He didn't reveal himself, but he got a few things to say.
I am safe, to the best of my knowledge. We live in a perilous world, and that weighs on me sometimes. But overall, I am doing quite well, and I consider myself very fortunate.
For John Doe, being safe didn't mean he was out of danger. He'd seen what happened to others who challenged the powerful. Daphne Caruana Galizia, the fearless Maltese journalist who exposed high-level corruption, was murdered by a car bomb. Jan Kuciak, the Slavic reporter investigating links between politicians and organized crime, was shot dead along with his fiancée. Their only crime was uncovering the truth. And in this world, that could cost you your life. His trusted confidant, Bastian Obermeier, compared the Panama Papers to Watergate, the 1970s scandal that forced US President Richard Nixon to resign. Back then, the secret source, Deep Throat, was FBI official Mark Felt, who stayed anonymous for 33 years.
I have thought about Mark Felt from time to time and the types of risks he faced. My risk profile looks a bit different than his. I may have to wait until I'm on my deathbed.
He explained further by saying that the files he revealed had likely hurt people close to Putin, and now he feared for his life.
The Russian government wants me dead.
But for John, the danger wasn't just about one country. Oligarchs in Moscow, ministers in Africa, oil kings in the Middle East, bankers in Europe. For years, they had all trusted Mossack Fonseca to keep their secrets buried. But because of him, those secrets weren't buried anymore. Their hidden empires were now out in the open, and there was no going back. He stated that he had never worked for a government or intelligence agency, and that he did all this because he saw injustice and couldn't stay silent. He cited the brutal murders of journalists Daphne Caruana Galizia and Jan Kuciak as warning signs, proof that the powerful don't hesitate to silence whistleblowers. Even now, John Doe insists he'll never reveal his identity. It's not safe. But when asked if he'd do it all over again, if he could turn back time,
In a heartbeat.
Since the leak, global pressure has led to stronger transparency laws and billions collected in back taxes. Yet for many, offshore secrecy remains alive and well. After that rare interview, John Doe vanished again. No trace, no new messages. All he left behind was one name and one global earthquake of truth. He didn't want fame. He just wanted the world to see the truth. Inside the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., a red light blinks on a secure server. Agents sit in silence, reading the documents. They saw hundreds of powerful names linked to secret companies, and behind it all, someone no one has ever seen. Someone who went by the name John Doe. At the same time, in Lyon, France, Interpol's cyber unit is doing the same. Scrolling, connecting dots. The question on everyone's mind: who leaked the Panama Papers and how was it pulled off? They checked the files for clues. Nothing. No login history, no location tag, no traceable upload. Whoever did this knew exactly how to disappear. John Doe never asked for money. He didn't blackmail anyone. He didn't even reveal his real identity to the journalists. So why didn't the FBI or Interpol launch a manhunt? Both the FBI and Interpol had two main reasons for not going after John Doe. First of all, John Doe was never the one who caused the corruption. He was the whistleblower. If it weren't for him, the files would still be locked away somewhere safe. Secondly, going after John Doe posed another problem for the FBI and Interpol. If they were to decide to go after him, it would confirm something to the public. It would confirm the files were real. And there was one party in particular that didn't want that: governments. So they shifted their focus. They were going to go after the people behind all these offshore companies. They were going to go after the founders of Mossack Fonseca. It's February 9th, 2017. We're in Panama City. It's late in the evening. Earlier today, the general prosecutor of Panama announced an investigation that mentioned Mossack Fonseca as a potential criminal organization accused of hiding or destroying evidence connected to a corruption investigation in Brazil. It's been a busy day at work for the directors, but now, close to midnight, they're ready to head home. Suddenly, they hear sirens in the distance. That's not unusual in a city like Panama City, where nearly 1 million people live and the streets never really sleep. It's close to midnight in a city full of crime, but the sound of the sirens is getting closer. Jurgen Mossack and Ramon Fonseca don't know it yet, but the police are heading their way. Before they could get a slight chance to get rid of evidence, the police have already arrived. They searched everything: laptops, servers, documents, all to find evidence. Eventually, the police arrested the two men and took them to the police station for further questioning. Both Jurgen Mossack and Ramon Fonseca were arrested for suspicion of money laundering and corruption after their offices were raided as part of a scandal that would be known as the Odebrecht scandal. Then, on April 21st, 2017, only months after their initial arrest, they were both released from jail after paying their bail of $500,000 each. However, continuing where they left off wouldn't be an option. Mossack Fonseca became an infamous name. The rich didn't see it as a safe place for their money anymore. The regular people saw it as nothing more than a dirty money laundering scheme. It was over for them. And it all happened because of one man and his anonymous tip. Just a single act that managed to shake up the entire world. So did anything change in the end? Mossack Fonseca officially closed their doors on March 14, 2018, about a year after the original arrest. When the world heard about the files, everyone was shook. Governments started investigations, banks were fined, and politicians stepped down after being exposed or even arrested. Because of these investigations started by governments, Jürgen Mossack and Ramon Fonseca eventually met their fate and were charged in the Odebrecht scandal after corruption traces were traced back to them by the Brazilian government. They were eventually released, but they never gave the public what they wanted. They denied their guilt and ruined their reputation. New laws were put in place to keep these money laundering schemes from happening, but loopholes still exist, and rich people still find places to hide their money, just more carefully than before. And there is one more guy out there. No one knows who he is, what he looks like. All we know is that he goes by the name of John Doe. He managed to disappear off the face of the earth. Then he came back. He gave an interview, said very powerful people want him dead. Then he disappeared again. If you want more stories like this, just click the video on your screen now.